Yo, what's up? I'm outside. We've had some weird weather, so we got a little break in it. So I thought I'd get a little bit of sun and do this video super casual. But anyway, I kind of had this more recent breakthrough on some of my mixes. It's been like giving me a ton of depth and weight to my mixes, but it's also allowed me to clean up the low end on my mix, getting my kick and bass a little more clear, but also fuller and deeper sounding. I'm gonna, I guess, have to go down to the basement. I didn't get much sun, I guess. All right, I'm in the basement. What's up? We're gonna go over what I'm calling sub weight. That's the name of the track that I've been giving it. One of the reasons that I'm sharing this specifically is this track that I created for one mix, I've started to just copy and paste into basically every other mix. And I'll do a couple small tweaks on the kick and the bass to sort of compensate for the added weight or bassiness that I'm adding with this subweight track. But for the most part, it's just been a drop it in the session, route my drum or rhythm bus, which includes drums and bass guitar or bass synth. So it routes that all to the subweight track, and I just kind of let it do its thing. I am using some paid plugins for this, but I want to, at the end, see if I can quickly get a ballpark with some free ones. I'm going to go to the song that I created this track with originally. And that's a song called Overtime, something that Pierre and I collaborated on with our friend Eviana. So with this track, I just felt that there needed to be a little bit more weight. I felt the mix needed to extend a little further, but I just wasn't getting there by just, boosting the low end or like trying to get like 30 or 40 hertz boosted on the bass guitar. It just felt like it was taking up a ton of space in the mix. So I tried something that feels maybe a little counterintuitive at first. I actually trimmed more of the low end off the bass, off the kick drum, and then created this subweight track where I'm heavily saturating the low end and compressing it a bit, and basically just creating this constant support for any low end elements, which is essentially the kick and the bass. And so it is definitely helping support these things, but it's then also allowing me to trim a lot of that sort of 40, 30, 20 hertz area on the bass, on the kick, but still retain some weight down there. So I think for me, it's been allowing me to clean my mixes up. It's been allowing me to more specifically focus the bass with a roll off. So I'm like, I want the bass guitar to be rolling off at 40 hertz. I want the kick to be rolling off at maybe 60 hertz, which is pretty high for me. Like I want that. I like something that has a solid subby low end to it. And so that felt counterintuitive. Anyway, let's get into what I actually did instead of continuing to talk about it. So just real quick, I'm going to bring up the bass DI here. So I do have this bass split up into a DI and a treble track. So if I mute the treble, oh, and something important, you're going to need nice headphones or monitors. A laptop, earbuds are probably not going to recreate the stuff that I'm talking about. But anyway, so I have this sort of nice subby low end thing. And in this production, I guess I never actually broke out the like the drum tracks, like the kick, snare, etc. So I'm still just processing the entire drum machine as a whole. Oh, I know. I see what I'm doing. Okay. I'm using the acoustic drums for the kick. Yeah. So that's giving me this roomy thing, that I've talked about in other videos. And then in the chorus is when the actual kick sample comes in. And that's just being supporting. Just giving a little dirt, giving a little grit to that kick drum. So I'm rolling off low end on the acoustic drums at 65 hertz. That's pretty high. Like, I'm rolling off a decent amount, I would say. Let's just get straight into the subweight track here. So that's this track. Let's just throw a different color on it. Let's go, I want pink, there you go. So I got subweight going on. And so what I'm doing is I have a saturator. I have a very dramatic EQ rolling off everything above 40 hertz. and then a compressor with a very fast attack time and a sort of slowish release. And this release is something that I could change per song, depending on the tempo and sort of the feel. Do I want each kick to sort of affect the subbiness and sort of, the kick will push the subs down, at least from the bass, and then we'll kind of let them rise back up with this release. So let's just listen to the sub weight on its own. This, again, can be pretty hard to hear. So what I'm doing on this plugin is I am pushing 30 hertz pretty hard into this saturation, and then I'm also rolling off everything above 4K or so. I think if I can just disable these. And so that's, you can feel, if you have headphones or speakers, you should be able to feel that 30 hertz just really pushed. It's just very. So there it's, you can still hear it. It sort of sounds similar, but the emphasis is so much more on that like the sub 30 hertz area. And so if I had a free plugin, I would probably use an EQ before to push 30 hertz. So that's something I'm going to try. And then pushing the input a little bit just so that I can get just turn the saturation all the way up. And then ultimately I'm like, the input is down a lot, by 20 decibels. So let me bring this up so you can kind of potentially hear a bit more of what's going on. Let me actually turn these other effects off too. So this is just the saturator. So that don't, da, da, that's kind of where I focused it. Like I just, soloed the bass. Like that low root note on the bass, I think is just being really supported by this saturator. So if I turn that volume all the way down and then just get into the EQ, this is pretty straightforward. Let's get everything else in there. And so you can see on the EQ here is I'm letting a bit of the punch from the kick through, and really I'm just letting the support, like the saturation is just bringing a lot of that 20 hertz, 15 hertz from the bass and the kick up there. So that's just adding this nice weight, and then I'm compressing it to control the dynamics a bit. And I think yeah, I mean, this is just catching anything that's a little too intense. So this is super subtle in this song. I'm going to take the subway in and out and just see if you can tell the difference. So this is out. That's in. So I think when you take it out, you can really feel it. But when you add it, it's kind of not. I think another thing that's important about the technique that I'm using here is I am sending all the drums and the bass, so kind of any rhythmic element is all coming to this main drum folder that I call drum bus. So I'm doing all of my compression, some EQ moves and all that on the drums and the bass together, which I think really helps glue those things. But then outside of that compression, like the subweight track is on its own, and it's really only going to be passing or interacting with everything through the master fader. And so your master bus compression is really important to make sure that if you do have any master bus compression, like I gotta bring these back online. I'm not affecting stuff that's below 180 hertz on this compressor. Like the compressor is set to not worry about that stuff. You want to make sure that your compressors are not touching your low end unless you want it to for a specific reason. But for the most part, like I let the low end pass through everything. My subweight is being controlled with a little bit of compression, but not that much. Yeah, see, in this, I did turn that off because I want it to actually respond to, the 40 hertz and down that I'm letting pass. So anyway, this is the track that I created subweight on. And then there's this other track, 9 Days, that is another one that I just dropped it in. And then I just trimmed up the kick and the bass, and it just worked. I'm curious. I can't remember if there's anything different about the settings versus overtime, but we can take a look at that too. So this is should just be the drum bus. And this is subweight is out. Yeah, so subweight, the settings on these plugins are exactly the same. You can also see with my routing, drum bus is just being sent full level into subweight. I'm not doing any specific, I'm not just sending the kick. I'm not just sending the bass synth. I think it is important because there is a little bit of a punch on the snare. There is, there could be a lower tom or bongo type thing. There could be something else that's in your percussion that you like. Adding this weight will help. This song particularly has these like trash drums that I'm sure, we'll take a look. I'm sure are adding, there's a little bit of sub that's being added even from the trash drums into this subweight. So again, plugins exactly the same. Yeah, nothing. Even these levels are the same. But that's probably because I tend to try to keep most of my signals peaking around 18. It's just kind of where I feel like everything just kind of works nicely. I don't have crowded mix problems. So let's see. Yeah, so drum bus here, basically like an overtime, is peaking around 18. So that means my subweight settings, like the actual levels, should just basically work, right? And in this case, it did. So let's just solo the subweight here and see how it's different. So you can hear, like you have some of the syncopated rhythm that's going on in this song is being represented by the subweight. So, I mean, it's getting totally thrashed, right? But it sounds cool. Now I want to try recreating this effect with free plugins. Let's just call this subweight free. Do req. Probably need 2 of those. I'm gonna do maybe chow tape for the tape saturation. Because in PSP saturator, I'm doing a tube saturation. All right, I was sort of expecting tape saturation. Well, let's try tape saturator. All right, so with req, I'm gonna push 30 hertz, 9 decibels into the tape model, or Chow Tape Model, which is a free tape saturation plugin. It's pretty good. I use it a lot for the degrade and loss, flutter and wow. But I'm just going to drive and saturate this and probably input gain the just bejesus out of it. I don't want any treble. I want all the bass. And this is the cutoff. So, 200. So that's a little too done. So maybe I'm pushing a little too much. Yeah, so I'm kind of like over-saturating the bass where it's just sort of farting out. So this is like, okay, give it a little ease on the bass. Let's see if I can saturate it more. And also checking my level. I'm pretty hot. Let's all right. So and then let's roll everything off. tell I don't use these plugins super regularly. So that's a super quick route. I'm sure if you had even something simple like the soft tube saturator, what free saturations do I have here? Yeah, not much. Yeah, so real quick, you know, with just some Reaper plugins and then this free tape saturator, I feel like I'm able to get a pretty good approximation. I am kind of curious how they sound. So that's the free. And then here's the not free. You can actually hear it crackling a little bit. It's maybe pushed a little too hard, but you know, it works in the mix. So this is with the free subweight on and off. I'm gonna start with it off, add it, take it off. It's a little more subtle. Here I'm gonna add the from PSP saturator. Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, they definitely sound different to me. The saturator, I think there's something a little bit more happening with that, with this warmth knob. That's, you know, it's not just how on this EQ, how I'm trying to emulate that, but it's maybe just a push at that frequency into the saturation. It might be a little bit of like a multi-band compressor. So it's kind of allowing those frequencies to be lengthened a little bit more, like it's compressing them a bit and pushing that compressed low end into the saturation. Whereas this seems to push the punch of the drum a little bit too much, which is making it so I can't really saturate it as much as I can with the PSP saturator. But you know, I'm sure if I took a little bit more time, I could get things a bit closer. But that is just one quick example of how to get something similar. You know, definitely added to it. It just didn't add that sort of extra bigness that the PSP saturator is giving me. You know, any technique or anything that I just find myself doing on every mix, it probably is a good reason to be like, all right, I should do a quick video about this. And, you know, my concept of quick is maybe a little different than someone else's. But anyway, I'm going to leave it at that. Have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you in the next video.